Yehi zicharo mapecha. The last three words of any Jewish eulogy are Yehi zicharo baruch. May her memory be a blessing. But this morning, when giving the eulogy for his beloved son, John Poland said, Yehi zicharo mapecha. May his memory kindle a revolution. I spent all day thinking about that. What did he mean by that? What do those words mean? We're not strangers to catastrophe, crisis, tragedy, or destruction. There's a whole vocabulary created for the Jewish expression of oppression. Words like ghetto and pogrom and genocide and Holocaust, all our own. But our long history of tears has taught us lessons in resilience, in healing, in coping, and in hope. You see, we have a very secret superpower. We have the power out of the ashes to find embers of hope, out of the shadow to find sparks of renewal and rebirth, out of the darkness to find glimmers of God's presence. This is our history. This is the story of our history. In the Torah, when the people Israel crossed the Red Sea, the Torah says, "Vayamidu Mardonai b'Moshe avdo." They believed in God and they trusted Moses. And there was a rabbi in the Talmud who said, well, of course they believed in God and trusted Moses. They just saw the sea split. Anyone who would walk through the sea on dry land would believe in God and trust Moses. And his colleagues of the academy hushed him up. Not so, they said. 280 years of oppression and slavery. Watching your children thrown into the pits, watching your elders crushed beneath Pharaoh's projects, this people had every right to sit down in despair and give up. The fact that they would step into the sea, the fact that they would step into tomorrow, the fact that they would step into history is a greater miracle than the splitting of the sea. The fact that they would say yes to a tomorrow after so much of yesterday was so horrifying. It's the greatest miracle in all of Jewish history. The fact that they would embrace possibilities is so endemic to our soul. Prophet Jeremiah witnessed the destruction of everything sacred to him. The temple of Jerusalem, the city of Jerusalem, his family, the priests, all destroyed. And yet he stood on a hillside in Jerusalem and he proclaimed, Od Yishama Bi'arei Yehuda Ubechutzot Yerushalayim, the song we sing at every wedding. Once again, I promise you, these hills will ring with the sound of joy and gladness, the happy song of brides and grooms. And when the temple was destroyed again by the Romans, and the people came to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai in the Academy of Yavne, and they said, what do we do now? Everything holy and sacred has been taken from us, and God's house in the world has been destroyed. Has God rejected us? Rabbi Yochanan said, no. Al shosha dvarim ha'olam omed. The world still stands, but on new pillars. God is with you, but in new functions. Torah, avodah, gemilut chasadim. Through learning, through prayer, through acts of kindness. When the Spanish expulsion destroyed 1,000 years of Jewish history, the most golden years in all the generations in the land, in the Iberian Peninsula, the Zohar comes along and says, we Jews, we are responsible for tikkun olam. We possess the power to bring tikkun, to bring wholeness to the world. And when the Besht and his great-grandson, then Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav, saw the horrifying pogroms of the Chelnitsky massacres, they declared, Asur lehityaesh, it is forbidden for Jews to despair, to give up, to sink in bitterness. And when Theodor Herzl, in his nightmares, saw the conflagration that was to come just a few years after his death, he proclaimed to the Jewish people, Im tirtzu ein zo agada, if you believe it, it's no dream. And now, October 7th. October 7th, and all of us are drowning in tragedy and despair and pain. But here too, a father of a young smiling son, turns to us and say, Yehi zicharo mapecha, let his memory kindle a revolution. Let his memory kindle a revolution. I don't know what that revolution is going to look like yet. I anticipate it. I can't wait to see it. There's a wonderful poem by a poet in Israel named Rabbi Elchanan Nir. He's a Rosh Yeshiva. He's a super Orthodox guy teaching in Efrat. And he writes, Akshav ke'avir linshima, anachnu tzrichim Torah chadasha. Now, like a breath of fresh air, we need a new Torah. Now, gasping for air with choking throats, we need a new Mishnah and a new Gemara, a new Kabbalah, and a new Baal Shem Tov. That is the uncanny gift of this people. To turn from tragedy and despair and bitterness toward renewal, reinvention, reinvigoration, reimagination. Israel itself is an expression of that. You understand that on the day that the Shoah ended, if you can pick a day somewhere in 1945, that 6 million Jews, a third of the Jewish people, were destroyed. 90% of the Jewish teachers in the world destroyed. 90% of the Jewish books in the world destroyed. 90% of the Torah scrolls in the world destroyed. 90%. The great centers of Jewish learning decimated, destroyed in the ovens of Auschwitz and Treblinka. And the Jewish people had every right at that point to sit down and die. But you didn't do that because you're stubborn. Am kshe orach, said Moshe. You're stubborn, you Jews. What did you do instead? You had every right to raise your voice toward God and say, where were you? But instead, you said, okay, so if God's not here, we'll take his job. God creates, so we will create. On this continent, we created whole institutions of federations and charities, of summer camps and seminaries and synagogues and schools and institutions of social welfare and political advocacy. And we created all the state of Israel. And we said, God rescues, so we will rescue. So we rescued Jews from the Soviet Union, and Jews from Syria, and Jews from Ethiopia, and Jews from the DP camps. And we said, God liberates, so we will liberate. So we stood with African Americans, and we stood with women seeking liberation, and we stood with LGBTQ brothers and sisters, and we fought for their liberation. Because if God wasn't going to show up, then we'll do it. That's the uncanny power of this people. The uncanny power of this people to rescue hope from the darkness and the pain and the despair and the bitterness. Yehi zicharo mapecha. Let his memory kindle a revolution. Do you know how many kids in this synagogue who were not my best students in Hebrew school went off to college this year and became campus leaders, fighting for Zionism, fighting for Israel, fighting for the Jewish people, standing up against obnoxious professors and all of their ridiculous critical theories? Do you understand how many kids who couldn't figure out a shin from a bet at their bar mitzvah stood up and said, yes, I'm a Jew, do something about it? You know how many kids at UCLA and Columbia and Penn and Berkeley did that this year? And not just our kids. I had a call from a friend of mine who's a Presbyterian minister in the neighborhood. Sweet guy. He said, Ed, where can I buy mezuzahs? I said, what do you want mezuzahs for? He said, I have a men's group. And we heard that there are people in the area who are attacking homes that have mezuzahs. We want to put mezuzahs on our doors. I need 45 mezuzahs. I can get you 45 mezuzahs. Wholesale. Because he doesn't need the cloth. So He asked me, are they kosher? Kosher enough. Kosher enough. Kosher enough. So this summer we were there. We were in Israel, in Tel Aviv, for a beautiful, restful weekend before we started our studies in Jerusalem. And we saw a poster on the wall that they had Israeli dancing on the boardwalk on Saturday night. And Nina is an Orthodox dancer. And she said, we're going. I said, okay. So she goes. And in the middle of this tragedy, there's 50, 60 people dancing. It's beautiful, just beautiful. And then a song comes on. A song comes on. And this song has a little story to it. 1966, Shlomo Carlebach, the great rabbi, the great Hasidic singing rabbi, was sent to the Soviet Union by the Lubavitcher Rebbe to visit the kids who gather. He was told that Jewish life in the Soviet Union was all but gone. But he went to the Moscow synagogue on Simchas Torah, and he saw thousands and thousands of Jewish kids gathered to sing and to dance. And the words that came to him, Am Yisrael Chai. And he began to sing it, the song you all know, Am Yisrael. He started to sing that. And thousands of kids began to dance around him. And that became a watchword. The people of Israel lives, he said. The people of Israel lives. Well, during this catastrophe, an Israeli singer named Eyal Golan took those same words and rewrote the song. Same words, but different chorus, different verses. He said, Am hanetzach lo yifached. A people of eternity, an eternal people, will never be afraid as long as we remember who we are. Am Yisrael Chai, a people that maintains its hope, its vision, its power to renew, its power to say yes to life, its power to dream, its power to reimagine, and yes, John, its power to engineer and kindle a revolution. Am hanetzach lo yifached, Am Yisrael Chai.